everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks in another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're taking a look at a game that I just knew I had to cover, because usually when a lower level match comes across my doorstep, it tends to be a longer one. Yeah, we like to do some marathon matches every here and then, but usually when it's the lower level players, sometimes they don't quite know how to finish off a game. This one, however, ended up being quite short, so I know that there's going to be at least an interesting strategy at play here that might be worth taking a look at. There's been a lot of requests recently for me to do guides, and I won't lie, I'm procrastinating a little bit on it because I'm very short for time nowadays, but maybe in lieu of that, this can serve in its place. So, without further ado, our red team leader, a Armada commander, spawning in the backline right here in the what is usually defined as the tech position, a commander that goes by the name of Insanity Prevail. BBC Insanity Prevail. British Broadcasting Company, Insanity Prevail. We're going to go with that acronym. Going to be showing us what they've got in the backline here, apparently. Similarly, on the other side of the map, the blue commander, the blue Cortex commander, going to be leading the air battle here for the blue team. A commander that goes by Beosin 56, to be precise. Beosin 55, 1 through 55 apparently taken up here. Beosin 56. Going into some of that good old-fashioned Cortex Air. A lot of options with Cortex Air, of course. You have access to good bombers, you have access to good paralyzation, you have access to transports, you have access to good fighters. Basically, you've won the air fight if you decided to go Cortex. Similarly, on the front line, you've won the fight if you've decided to go Cortex bots. It's been a little bit of a meme in the community. A community, by the way, you're more than welcome to join if you go ahead and click the links down below in the description section. I will also have links to the Omega Series tournament, which will be going on this Saturday, Sunday, one of the two of those. I'll tell you where you can figure out whether it's Saturday or Sunday in the link down below in the description section. Go check it out down below in case you're interested in joining up. It's a little bit of a meme that if you pick Cortex, you win, and if you pick Armada, you lose. Now, as an Armada player, this is distraught news. This definitely has me shaking on the edge of my seat, but I wouldn't say it's altogether the wrong decision. Yeah, indeed, we see a lot of players starting off with Cortex, because it's definitely, I would say, at least in this humble caster's opinion, the easier faction to learn. Not necessarily to master. I think there's some things about Armada that have slightly higher skill ceilings that I think pro-level players are going to definitely take advantage of. But if you're starting out new, if you're brand new to the game, then I think Armada definitely has some nuance that's a little bit difficult to pick up on, so I wouldn't blame you for starting off with Cortex and giving yourself that advantage to at least allow you to maintain a competitive attitude. Brilliant start right here. Brilliant, that was the word that was supposed to be. Brilliant start right here for the hot pink and the green commanders, both sending red spots out here to claim. The only way you make this better, of course, is by spending that metal on units on the front line. So indeed, we do have a Centurion being pumped out right here by Azo CDS, Azog's, the hot pink commander. Going to be building a construction turret here, and now has a Centurion on the front line. Usually what we see is a couple of... Oh, nice replay. Manages to eat up the resbot right there. It will be caught by the tank here. Usually what we see is mass pawn spam, and that's exactly what we see from the green commander. However, the other side of that coin is making sure that you're using those pawns to actually do some damage, right? So we need to see these pawns aggressing against the enemy here. They should be trying to run by. They should be making sure to poke down units. While the Centurion is alone on the front line, going in for the kill against one Centurion is way easier than going in for the kill against, well, say for instance, a Centurion and a commander, or a Centurion and another Centurion, or a Centurion and another Centurion and another commander. The point there being that as the units snowball upwards, it can be harder and harder to kill them. It is distinctively harder and harder to kill them. Which is why exactly the blue team has essentially thrown away their advantage here. Yeah, they had the numbers advantage on the front line, meant they could have gone for those surrounds, meant they could have gone for those plays that otherwise would have helped them push this front line, and nowadays, at this very moment, it's going to be basically all of the economy plummeting off the deep end here, as Young Beans marches forward to claim those metal extractors, and the green commander marches forward to try and maintain this front line. We have a couple of Rocketeers up, which is always good. The problem with Rocketeers is they're very weak, especially against some of the cheapest units you can produce. Pawns, Grunts, Ticks, Rovers, Rascals, all those early light scout units. Any of those you make, the Rocketeers are going to be susceptible to. Means, of course, that it's quite difficult to maintain just a Rocketeer army until you get up to massive numbers, and the green commander really hasn't reached it yet. Centurion now going to be engaging on the front line. I don't particularly like this engagement. I mean, it's... As long as we keep that Centurion dancing, it can start blasting away. It takes a lot of micro right there, but if you've got the APM to spare, the hot pink commander certainly seems to. It's going to be a nice little trade right here. And indeed, microing back the Centurion in order to repair it. Nicely done right here by our hot pink leader on the front line. Why skip mechs, cries out the purple commander. I appreciate the coaching. That's a little passive-aggressive, but I definitely think that's the way to go, right? As opposed to just calling your teammate an idiot. This is definitely quite a bit kinder than that, and indeed, it's a fair critique. Getting those metal extractors up and running helps a lot. Making sure they stay up and running is how you win games of Beyond All Reason. Divine Evil, gonna be going for a T2 Cortex Lab transition right here. The Orange Commander already into a, oh no, pardon me, not into a T2 Lab, that's a T1 Cortex Lab. Gonna be going for T2 Cortex Vehicles, and that screams to me that this must be a TZAR rush. Yep. T2 Lab goes down right now, and whenever you see this sort of a build going on, it means that it's a TZAR rush. Now, this is scoutable, of course, right? The air player should be sending scouts across. Knowing roughly, pardon me, knowing roughly the timing of these different builds can be really crucial. It's one of the things that you pick up over time in a game of Beyond All Reason, or as you play Beyond All Reason. Not something you necessarily need to come into the game knowing 100% in order to be competitive, but it is good to know, and it's good to be aware of, because oftentimes it's also how you judge whether it's efficient to continue producing T1 units, or just go ahead and build T2s. 5 to 6 minutes is around the time the T2 Lab should be coming up and running right here for some of the fastest tech builds. Theoretically speaking, on certain maps and in certain situations, you can technically get them up a little bit faster than that, but you're semi-limited by the amount of build power and energy production you can get up and running at that point in the game. So really, 6 minutes is about what you'd expect for a T2 build. And indeed, the T2 Lab is up and running right now for the Red Commander. You can see the T2 metal extractors coming up, and we should see T2 cons being handed out to all the teammates, especially your C-Lane Commander, but also all of your frontliners that just don't have T2 yet. Also, your air player deserves T2 immediately. One of the most important commanders that ends up protecting you in a lot of situations is your air commander. So if there's a commander to give a free constructor to not demand payment from or not expect payment from, I would 100% say it's the air commander. This is the orange commander being sacrificed right here, and indeed, along with that timing right here, we do see the orange commander pumping out a T1 con, or a T2 con rather, out of this laboratory here, and eventually going to start pumping out some of those very heavy-hitting T2 units. Meanwhile, the front line is just developing very slowly. Yeah, we've got Rocketeers facing off against Centurion. It's a atrocious a battle, and an atrocious. It's an atrocious battle. Ooh, that's a fun word. I always like discovering fun new words. Discovering, aka making up as I go along, fun new words. Atrocious, yeah, a battle of attrition right here as these front lines collapse in on each other. Riot tanks, ooh, I don't like how bundled up they are. Yeah, those riot tanks spread out would have done wonderfully here, but actually I think this is a decent fight right now for the tank commander. Yeah, all said and done, those maces actually traded phenomenally against those riot tank pounders. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this was a wonderful engagement for the tank commander. Yeah, if only we had a resbot here to eat up this 2,000 metal now lying on the front lines. Alright. I don't hate it, I really don't. The frigates are now marching forward here for the Maroon Commander as well, and it looks like they're going to try and engage against some of these defenses that have been set up by the Purple Commander, trying to allow his teammate a hold into the water. Enter C, indeed, cries out the Purple Commander, working in tandem to try and make sure the Maroon Commander doesn't have an opportunity to push out into the water, maybe having to sacrifice the Commander in order to do so. Now, one of the things you can do is hop up on this island right here and go ahead and go for a D-gun, and it does look like that's maybe what the Purple Commander is thinking. Yeah, moving up onto that hillside. Nicely done by the Maroon Commander, recognizing it. Ooh, still manages to degun the Destroyer, though, is huge. The reason that's so big is, of course, because that's the only thing with any depth charge. And it does mean now that, oh, we can go for a capture command. Nicely done here by the Purple Commander. Yep, Maroon realizes and pulls those boats back, but it is so hilarious to see that capture command used. Oftentimes, that can manage to sneak out a couple of extra units that can be very, very annoying to deal with on the front line. Taking a sip of my water here, but there is a TZAR on the production queue. Alright. 1,650 metal later, and you've got yourself an ultra-heavy frontline brawler tank. Ugh, no reclaim on any of this is so tragic. What a phenomenal engagement right here for the tank commander. You can imagine if that 2,000 metal had been turned into a bunch of units and used to defend this front line, it would have been an easy stomp, but in this case, now we've got grunts marching their way through the battlefield here. We do have a gauntlet firing away, and at the very least softening up a lot of these forces, which is quite nice. Mesa's here struggling with this full surround that these grunts have gotten, though it's time to start going for pawns or centurions or anything they can deal with the spam. And at the very least, something to eat up all this reclaim wreckage. The commander moving out wouldn't be the worst idea, but of course resbots are quite a bit faster. Nuclear. It's not how it's pronounced, it's nuclear. No, wait. Nuclear? No, nuclear. Yeah, that is correct. Okay, sorry. Getting in my own head about it. Nuclear radiation. Yeah, not nuclear. Nuclear is a different thing. It's a non-existent thing. It's like quantum. They just throw quantum in front of anything. ZAR tank rolling out of the lab. 9 minutes and 30 seconds. 900 minutes and 30 seconds. 9 minutes and 30 seconds, the ZAR rolls out of the laboratory here. We also have the AGO coming up right here. Obviously, a bit of a risky gambit because this AGO is extremely explosive. In fact, if I just go ahead and hold the spacebar and the X key, X is in... what do you do? X-ray, that's right. Remembering my mnemonics. X is in X-ray and spacebar is in spacebar. It shows you an explosive radius here, and if I zoom out, it's a little clearer. This whole area right here in this big flashing circle, that's the full damage radius for this geothermal. And you might notice the entire radius is a full damage radius, so it really, really hurts when those things pop. One of the reasons why it's so risky to build that AGO right here in this spot. Obviously, it grants you a huge power jump. You jump from having basically T1 energy to full-blown T2 energy at 1,250 energy a second. But it does mean that you're in a little bit of a rough way as soon as bombers head towards your side of the map. Suddenly, you find yourself in a very tricky situation. Resbot's here for the hot pink player, and you know what? I don't mind it at all. If we're going to end up sending units here to defend anyways, if we're going to end up not reclaiming that for anybody else on the front, if the front line's not going to manage to reclaim that anyways, you may as well pick up that metal and use it. Same with these metal extractors. These have been left empty for a while here. I think the hot pink commander is justified to send a commander over to try and reclaim these. So surprised T1 hasn't been upgraded to T2 here. A little bit of a misplay from the red team, not upgrading their frontliners, but I suppose at this point the hot pink commander is going to be able to just plain out afford their T2 transition from the scavenge on the battlefield here. Is the ZAR going to be able to do much work? Let's see. Purple commander goes down to the maroon forces that have been pushing the shoreline for quite some time, trying to get the cyan commander's boats out. It is an uphill battle to try and win this fight right here for these destroyers. 2 destroyers in maroon, as well as a couple of frigates, of course, means that this is a slightly uneven fight. The anti-air here, actually blasted down, means the shuriken can engage, making this quite a bit better here. The ZAR has rolled out to the front. The King tank. I'll go ahead and switch to this vision because I love taking a look at the ZAR. Whoa, sorry, getting turned around right here. Look at that beast, firing its super shells. Boom, go the ZAR shells, and away goes anything that happens to be in their way. Firing now at the static defenses and easily melting them apart. Oh, and there goes the crab as well. Unfortunate. ZAR here nicely defended. Ooh, but a Mammoth has been rushed out as well. What an interesting counter to the ZAR rush. We've gone ahead and gone for a Mammoth rush. Now, if there's one thing the Mammoth has on its side, it's, of course, a ridiculous HP pool. These things are insanely tanky. I'm going to go ahead and back off here so that we have a little bit less noise and we can focus on this a little more clearly. Oh, how cheeky. Yeah, okay, I love it. So the ZAR has been countered by the Mammoth. Mammoth costing 2,200 metal, by the way. The ZAR costing 1,650, meaning as far as the metal advantage goes, the Mammoth should be the heavier unit, and indeed it is. Blasting away with that high-powered laser beam and whittling down all of these frontline forces. Lovely stuff right here from the Seafoam Green Commander, Divine Evil. So we have T2 T2 core bots versus T2 core vehicles. What a funny little showdown right here. Oh, I love it. This is an interaction I don't know if I've ever seen. The Mammoth getting very low here, though. Ooh, yeah. Mammoth goes down. That's a massive blunder right now. That Mammoth was meant to destroy this entire front line, and instead it only managed to kill a couple of T1 units. Uh-oh. Suddenly the ZAR reigns supreme once more. Yeah, these T1 units not going to hold up well under that ZAR fire at all. The ZAR fire is a massive concussive shell, and you can see the AoE on it is just blistering. Means that with proper micro, the ZAR is able to kill even some of the T2 defenses with relative ease. It is a dangerous unit, to say the very least, and you can see just how blinding it is to fight this thing. I mean, what do? You definitely don't keep producing T1 units right here like Zenith is. These Rocketeers, if they're lucky, getting a chance to fire a single missile off. Sheldon here, a little bit of a better proposition. The Purple Commander calling out that they're going to Spybot. I think that's a good option here as well. Do we have the Spybot, though, is the question. The Purple Spybot headed on its way, but it is going to be a minute before it actually arrives anywhere useful. In the meantime, the ZAR is still a menace on the front, and it needs to be dealt with. Submarines on the other side of the map. Okay. Now, the thing about submarines is they're only effective when they're firing. Or rather, when they're facing the enemy. They can't fire backwards. Not the T1 submarines, anyway. So, you know, with a beautiful surround like this, though, they are going to be able to pull apart that destroyer very nicely. Alright. Well, nicely done. Usually submarines not very efficient against destroyers, but there does come a critical mass where suddenly the tables turn and the destroyer does become quite vulnerable. Yeah, you know what? I think we've hit it. I think 4 submarines might be the very pinnacle here. And suddenly, just like that, this entire Navy is blown to smithereens. Okay, nicely done by the Pink Commander. An excellent engagement right there. Judging that engagement very closely, but managing to pull ahead with it. The Cyan economy is looking phenomenal. We've also got the island base, which is lovely to see. Loads of LOT set up in case any stray commanders go marching in that direction. For the time being, though, this does look like 1 sea apiece for each of these teams, with the red team commanding the left-hand sea and the blue team commanding the right-hand sea. Although I will say, there's still a navy here. This is definitely a navy that can still brawl against this, and if you take a really decent fight, you can still manage to pull back in this situation. It just gets very hard. You have to play very tactically. One of the all-ins you can go for is just building 1 million dolphins or 1 million skaters, trying to send them past your enemy's army around into their base and killing their production. That buys you a lot of time to just go ahead and build as much boats as possible, just trying to send as many boats over as possible, and every unit you trade out, of course, means that the enemy can't trade one in return. Now we're going to have some Quakers pumped out right here. Double fusion plus the AGO means this is actually quite a lot of energy production right now for the Orange Commander, and you can see just how efficient that production really is. We've got a Tremor coming out here as well. Nicely done. Tremor's very expensive at 1,850 metal apiece, and more importantly, 49,000 energy apiece. One of those things you really can only pay for once you have an E-storage and proper energy production up and running, but in this case, the Orange Commander definitely has enough of both. This is exactly the engagement we want to see. Picking off 1 destroyer at a time, pulling back the injured ones. Maybe a little bit of repair micro wouldn't be the end of the world here either. Obviously very difficult to micro all of that at the same time. Oh, yeah, okay, we're going for that all-in strat, so here we go. The Dolphin's going to jump on top of this. The key here is that the Dolphins engage at the same time as the destroyers. If that can happen, you can trigger that flanking bonus, and suddenly you can actually do way more damage than your destroyers otherwise would normally be able to. It's a weird kind of advantage, but it can work in your favor really, really nicely, especially if you've got the res subs to deal with it, to gain from the repercussions of that action. In this case, though, it looks like the Dolphins were not sufficient enough. Oh, a lot of friendly fire right there, though. You know what? The friendly fire is pretty brutal. A lot of friendly fire on those destroyers there. Meanwhile, the destroyers in Maroon are retreating quite nicely. You know what? I want to say that Uriel is doing a lovely job of making the very best of a very dangerous situation, a very, very risky situation, to say the least. Res Sub pulling out some metal from the wreckage. Now it's run dry, and it means those Dolphins are out of power. Yeah, we're petering out here at the end of this, but it was a lovely effort. I really, really love the effort that went in here to trying to defend against this massive navy. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to more stuff beats less stuff, and that's exactly what we saw right here. Destroyers now firing on this. Meanwhile, the entire Seafoam Green base is destroyed. That's the allure of the AGO, is all that energy, but obviously the folly of the AGO is the fact that should it pop, so too does your entire base. Bomber's not quite done yet as they head towards the blue main manufacturing center. Went into a T2 lab in order to pump out those T2 fighters. Meanwhile, the yellow commander was just massing T1, and indeed, looks like those T1 fighters were sufficient to go ahead and detonate this. Oh, Bombers here actually not able to take out that fusion in a single blow. I guess it's just a couple of these whirlwinds. Trying to pop the E-converters, actually. They just happened to glance upon the fusions here, but boom go the fusions. My goodness, I can't believe that many whirlwinds managed to do that. E-converter is highly explosive, though, and helping out quite a ton, and just like that, the blue base is also eradicated. Nicely done. Now comes the era of the Tremor. So dangerous the Tremor is to keep on the front line because, of course, its wide area of effect means that oftentimes the Tremor will friendly fire more so than most units would. Usually what this ends up meaning is that when you have a Tremor, you have to be very careful about microing it, even sometimes turning it off of fire at will and setting it on to hold fire, manual fire, whatever it's called, where it doesn't fire on its own. Gunslingers making their way out to the front. Okay. Sure, I mean, we're still fighting T1 vehicles, so it's not the end of the world. The boats on the shoreline here also have been firing away at this geothermal. No build power here to take the geothermal down, so we're in a bit of a rough situation. Yeah, it looks like the Dolphins didn't manage to save the Naval Commander in time. With a swift enough transition, we might have been able to save the Navy Commander with just a T2 transition, a T2 bot lab transition, and going ahead and going into some of those ducks, which do happen to be the best submarines in the game. Boom goes the orange base. Wow. T1 destroyers doing it all right there as the geothermal goes down, wiping out all of the tech lead that the blue team currently had. At this point, the game is about dead even. Metal for metal, the blue team pulling into the lead here, actually, as they reclaim a whole bunch of stuff. Submarines, though, devastating this base on the northern side as the sea is lost. Yeah, we've definitely turned this game into a yin-yang match if I've ever seen one. Maroon Commander out here on the water as well, still building. Trying to build some of those tidal generators, trying to get a Navy up and running. We have bombers out as well. Those heavy bombers are quite effective against sea units. Sea units tend to be quite slow. It comes down mostly to how still the enemy's units are positioned, or in other words, how many mistakes your opponent makes, and that's never really a key thing to rely on in a strategy game. Sometimes you can get away with it, but I wouldn't consider it a reliable strategy. Wind turbines here. Oh, chain reacting. Nicely done. Chain reaction is started, and boy, is it a slow one. Like a fuse burning down slowly to an Acme barrel of gunpowder. Eventually pops all the way back to the backline right here, whittling down the purple economy right now. Bombers coming in through this right-hand sea. Not enough anti-air in position right here means that this AGO is going to be a prime target. We're going to send a lot of bombers in here. I think you only need about 3 bombers. Let's see here. Yeah, I think about 3 bombers would have been able to kill that AGO without dying. Bomber's going to turn and go ahead and head towards the production center here of the Cyan Commander. Nicely done. Bombs connecting against a lot of that build power. Popping some of those construction turrets makes this quite easy, and now with the blue commander knocked out of the game, Hydra is in charge of all of the economy, all of the air, all of everything. This has turned into a very rough match. Suddenly the red team pulls ahead with a massive economic advantage. An advantage across the board, with nearly 100% advantage in metal, 50% across the energy, and overall metal and energy production climbing as well as those advantages are maintained. LLT is falling in Zenith 3, the green commander calls the resign vote. Yeah, without much of a play here, the blue team is now in shambles. What an unfortunate ending too, because this lane had been opened up on the southern side, so if we had sent some amphibious units through over there, we might have been able to clean all of it up, but unfortunately not the case. And now here we are with Kuti trying to defend themselves. Green commander goes down to a bunch of those T2 hounds pushing forward. Kuti moving in for the snipe. Runs out of energy, but manages to degun down the TZAR right there, which is obviously nice. The Cyan commander running away from the firepower of those Quakers here. Definitely a little bit of an issue. Oh, but the Banishers lock on target and manage to fire away directly at that commander, knocking out one more commander for the blue team. The last commander, Various Z. The Lavender Commander hiding in the corner and building some E-storage and metal storage right here to try and hold on to the last vestiges of their wealth. Where has the Navy gone? Suddenly the entire Navy... Oh, it's parked on the... it's parked in the ocean over here. Okay. Suddenly the entire Navy is gone right here for the Cyan Commander. All attention is focused on trying to save the base using the meager few grunts that we've pumped out of the laboratory here. The T2 not really caring much for it, though. Those Banishers banishing the pawns, as would their name imply. Pitbull here doing a great job of keeping out these hounds. Mr. Worldwide keeping it very nice and tidy in the backline right now. Another resign vote is called. Third time's the charm right here as the blue team finally passes their vote, realizes their folly, and falls to the might of the Red Army. A nice little TZAR rush, and I love that Mammoth counterplay right there, but at the end of the day, it really came down to who put more forces out on the front line. I feel like despite the overwhelming Navy advantage, and popping the orange base was huge as well, we just didn't turn that Navy advantage into a land advantage quick enough, and that might have been the way to bring this game back, but who's to say? The red team a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more on top of it, and it does mean that at this game, they're going to pull ahead with the win. Ruben winning the orange cow for, or the orange commander winning the golden cow for doing everything here, as indeed the graph often does indicate. Not even the biggest economy here, but managing to do a lot with a little bit. That's what we like to see. Thanks a ton for watching, and I sure hope you enjoyed. Feel free to like and subscribe and join the Briarworks community if you'd like to sign up. The Discord, of course, is down below, and I will see you in the very next cast, Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody, and have a lovely rest of your day.